this. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, November 19th, 2019 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. Please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and the pledge allegiance to the flag. Come on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. All right, our first item this evening is a public hearing regarding amendment to development plan, case 3-19. All right, I see Ms. Combs. Very good. Good evening, Ms. Combs.
All right, so we have two requests tonight. They both go hand in hand,
Is the mic on?
but you will vote on them separately. The first request is by DDC LLC, Sawyer's Mill Project 1 LLC for an amendment to the Sawyer's Mill Subdivision Development Plan pertaining to the listed parcels located near 5583 South Dixie Highway, Middletown, Ohio, and Manchester Road at Dixie Highway, Franklin Township, Warren County, Ohio. The development is accessed by Riverview Drive and Dixie Highway. The total acreage proposed is 122.41 acres. The second request that you will see is, again, a request by DDC Management, LLC, Sawyer's Mill Project 1, LLC, for a map amendment to rezone 5.09 acres of the property located at the listed parcel from B2 Community Business Zoning to PD Planned Development District. 1.97 acres of the property will remain B2 Community Business Zoning. The property is located at 5583 South Dixie Highway, Middletown, Ohio, 45042. So the numbers here go with each of the requests that I just read. So the first one, you can see the bold outlines, that's the new added sections to the previous development plan. The second, number 2, is the zone change that I read off, located at the corner of Manchester and Dixie Highway. These are just some pictures of the development. The first picture is the entrance of Sawyer's Mill subdivision. The next on the right, south on Riverview, looking towards Manchester. The bottom left, existing homes along Riverview Avenue. That's shortly after you've actually come into the subdivision. And the last is a previously approved section being constructed. There's actually homes now there. They're the new homes that you can actually go into and check out before purchasing. Okay, so DDC and Ryan Holmes have been working with the City of Middletown staff as well as Planning Commission and City Council to replace the previous developers, RC Communities and Republic Development, to take over the Sawyer's Mill development. The existing acreage in this development is 66.97 acres. The proposed additional acreage is 55.44 acres. Again, that total that I mentioned would be 122.41 acres. The existing residential units proposed in the subdivision was 213 units and a proposed 260 with this new amendment, which would equal 473 new homes. There's one existing commercial lot and open space is 11.53 acres. All the homes proposed in the new sections of the development will be single-family detached with elements of brick and stone. The home sizes and setbacks are consistent with previously approved sections of the subdivision. Going back to the map amendment, it proposes to rezone again 5.09 acres to PD Planned Development. The rezoning will allow for the addition of 15 to 17 homes and the creation of a cul-de-sac road. The remaining 1.97 acres will stay B2 Business Commercial Zoning District along Dixie Highway. At this time, there are no proposed businesses for the property to remain B2 zoning. For both the zoning districts are consistent with the surrounding zoning districts and review criteria outlined in the Middletown Development Code. And then as you look over to the right, that's just an example of a typical 50-foot lot layout, 30-foot front yard setback, 25 rear, and 5 side yard setbacks. This here, again, is just showing it all together, 1 and 2. Again, the bold, that's the new additional sections to the existing. which is kind of faded out in the background. And then the rezoning is the red that you see down there again at the corner of Manchester and Dixie. And then Planning Commission's recommendation. For the first, the amendment to the development plan, Planning Commission voted to approve the Sawyer's Mill amendment to the development plan based on the staff report provided in compliance with the requirements outlined in the Middletown Development Code, with the condition that the plan will meet the requirements by the engineering design manual as identified by the city engineer. The recommendation for the map amendment, Planning Commission voted to approve the map amendment to request to rezone the property located at the parcel mentioned to allow for 5.09 acres of the property to be zoned PD, Planned Development District, and 1.97 acres of the property to remain B2 Community Business District, based on the staff report provided in compliance with the review criteria requirements outlined in the Middletown Development Code. That concludes my staff report.
Okay. Any questions from council for Ms. Combs? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll open the public hearing regarding our amendment to development plan case number 3-19. Is anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment? Anyone to speak in opposition to? Is anyone to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Anyone here in favor? Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, John Bills here on behalf of DDC Management and Sawyer's Mill Project 1. Really, everything was summarized well. Nothing really to add to it. Just grateful for the opportunity to come before council here this evening. We're really excited about the project. We've off to a good start already for anybody that's been out there here over the last couple months. In the section 2, we've got pavement down, and as was mentioned, the model homes are being built in the existing section. And they're going to be up and running here soon. We got to get Duke in to get power in, which takes a little bit of time, but the construction's gone well. We're looking forward to these future phases as well. So just wanted to say thank you. Would be glad to answer any questions council may have, but just looking forward to be able to continue on with this project and get it going.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
So, all right. If there's anyone else speak in favor of? Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Dan Utt. I'm an attorney with Keating, Muthing, and Kleekamp. I represent the property owner, John Sawyer, and Mr. Sawyer is enjoying retirement in California, so he couldn't be here tonight, asked me to come. As we see this development, it's kind of a culmination of the plan all along to create a residential subdivision in Sawyer Mill, Sawyer Farms, and we think this development's consistent with the original vision, and we're actually, with the rezoning, reducing some of the commercial area so that will be residential, which I think is in keeping with the neighborhood and the demands on the roadway, et cetera. So appreciate your support. Any questions for me on behalf of the property owner? Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? All right. Hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and open the public hearing for the second, the map amendment for case 3-19, request by DDC Management LLC for Sawyer's Mills Project 1 for a map amendment to rezone the properties outlined in the staff report. Anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed map amendment? Okay. Anyone to speak in favor of the proposed map amendment? All right. Hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and we will move on to our guest this evening. I'd like to invite Ms. Julie Joyce Smith with the Butler County Auditor's Office.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for allowing me a few moments. I don't have anything earth-shattering to report, but it is the final visit that I will be with you this year. I do have a few of our popular annual financial reports. I'm sure if you need something to help you chill and relax, that will be great reading for you. But I do know it is nice to have them on hand, and then for anyone's interested, we featured Ice Fest this time around, so there'll be photos from Ice Fest that takes place every other year in Hamilton. The first item on my list, and like I said, none of this is new, it's mostly reminders and and just things of that nature. But the first is dog tag season is quickly approaching for all Ohio residents. If you own a dog, you're required to license said dog. You can get your tags starting December 1st and go through January 31st. If you're like me and you like a bargain, tags are typically $28, but for the period of December 1 through January 31, they're only $14, so get them now. And for those who've ever had a dog get out, it guarantees them a free ride home with no citations. So we do look forward to licensing all those dogs throughout the county. The next item on my list is in preparation for the 2020 reevaluation of all properties in Butler County. Our appraisal team has been very, very busy out and about. You may have had people question or maybe even saw us yourselves. We had teams of 8 drivers and appraisers out driving the entire county, looking at actually physically viewing residential and commercial structures. Took about 6 weeks, which was about 4 weeks less than our anticipated project time, so we are no longer out driving around. So if you get complaints or calls, please call our office and we'll find out if somebody's out in the neighborhood. But it did take us about 6 weeks to drive the entire county and for our appraisers to put eyes on every property. So that phase is done, and we're now starting the analysis phase, which is probably the most important. And then finally, an update on our skimmer, our fugitive that we apprehended back in June actually pled guilty to the fraud charges that were against him for placing skimmers in gas pumps down in Fairfield. We're hearing what his sentencing is going to be. So I will tell you that our weights and measure staffs continue to review skimmers on a weekly basis at the gas pumps. So we are continuing our efforts, and as the holiday season rolls around, we will increase our efforts because we have found the more people are out, the more the criminals are out as well. So we just want you to know that that's going on. I do not have anything positive to report on the quality fuel testing. Any traction that we picked up has not really gone anywhere. I don't know. There seems to be some fussing in the House and Senate right now in Ohio, so we think we are victims of that. But as we get to going, it's unlikely that we will have anything happen by the end of the year, so we will probably be working on that in the coming year. And then my last item was to hand out the PAFR reports, and I think that's it. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to entertain them. They don't even have to be on topic. If it's auditor office related, I will be happy to field them. If not, wish you all very happy holidays.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming down this evening. Next, I know we have some representatives from Hope House with us this evening. I'd like to invite you down. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Carla Messer, and I have been on the board for 11 years at Hope House, and I'm excited to give you a little update on the progress of our new project. Tonight, we're going to give you just a very brief history for those of you who may not know kind of our early beginnings. We'll also give you a project update, which will include a little bit about our programming, and then we'll end with some photos, a rendering of the project, and also a recent photograph of the status of that. So we're appreciative to be here. I need a Vanna ding. Oh, right on schedule. Thank you. I'll watch it. Perfect. Oh, there you are. Excellent. All right, we're squeezing it a little bit in here, but for those of you who may not be familiar with Hope House, we're celebrating 30 years of community impact in the greater Middletown area. And that really began when a church, Harlan Park Church of God, launched a women's pregnancy mission called Hope House. And we were soon incorporated in 1889 and signed a 10-year lease for the property on South Main Street. And we remained there serving the public until we began to feel some of the tension of having both men and women in one location. And we were busting at the seams, if you will, a little bit there. And we really weren't able to provide an adequate location for children to be able to play. We had a very thin sidewalk area between two buildings. And so we embarked on a project in 2010 to double the capacity for women and opened up our Women and Children's facility on Girard. And at that time, we went through some pretty major programmatic changes. In the past, when Hope House was initiated, we oftentimes let the residents who were staying there go out during the daytime, or even required them to go out during the daytime. And at this time, we had the luxury to be able to really change some programs and look at ways that we could make those programs more robust, looking at some of the root causes of homelessness. And that included staying indoors during the daytime and participating in courses and looking for ways to be able to look for long-lasting transformation. In 2014, we entered into a wholly owned subsidiary agreement with City Gospel Mission. And what that allowed us to do was to be able to insert some much needed infrastructure and additional programming that we quite frankly could not afford. And so we were not, although given a lot of funds directly from City Gospel, we were given all kinds of resources and tools, and we're able to share some of the economies of scale that come with being part of a much larger organization charged with doing the same missional work. In 2014, it was the same time, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. In 2011, right after we opened our Women's Center, we began looking fiercely for a new facility for our men's facility. And Mayor Mulligan can attest that I asked every time I saw him, can you help me find a building? And we finally did find a building in 2011. And it wasn't until 2014 that we were able to pen a memorandum of understanding with Abilities First to go ahead and take ownership of the Abilities First facility that had sat empty for numerous years on Grove Street. So in 2014, we had this signed MOU, but no money. And in fact, we're told that we probably would not be able to raise the funding necessary to embark on the type of facility we were looking at. So it took about from that 2014 until the 2018 groundbreaking for us to put together a funding stack. And we're going to share with you at a very high level a little bit about what that funding stack looks like tonight. Our hope is, even though it's cut off there to the right, is that in early 2020, we will open a new facility and be off of Main Street, and that will include 50 emergency shelter beds. That's a very small incremental increase from what we currently have on our Main Street location, and we are going to have 30 permanent supportive housing units there. We currently have 12 of those units, and we're going to go ahead and move that to 30 supportive housing apartments. And so I'm excited to introduce you to our Executive Director of Operations, Tim, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the new project, give you a look at the actual blueprint of how the facility is going to be laid out, and how those programs are going to enrich the lives of people in Middletown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm going to back up just a minute, if that's okay. And we're celebrating our 30th year of helping men, women, and children break free from the cycle of poverty and despair. And we really begin that process by providing basics: food, safe shelter, and clothing. But we know that homelessness is just a symptom of deeper issues going on, as is addiction. So we take the holistic approach and then give them an opportunity through programs, services, and relational support to really begin to move to a transformed life. We've got great community partners that help us out along the way: Access Counseling, Jobs Plus, Warren County and Butler Metro Housing Authority, just a lot of people, businesses, and churches that come alongside us. So I don't know if you all know this, but we currently in our facilities have full-time case managers, full-time counselors, nursing staff full-time throughout the week, visiting doctors that come in. So really a full-fledged opportunities for people to receive the help and support that they really need. So developing relationships is really the key to success of people coming out of poverty. And I would even go so far as to say that the reality is that the depth of the relationships that our folks develop with God and caring people translates into their ability to leave behind the former life and step into a brand new life. So let's talk a little bit about then our new facility. It's 41,000 square feet. The model group is overseeing the building of this project. and we're hoping that it's going to be finished by mid-February. So there's several things that we're going to be able to do with this new facility. If you look at the lower section, that's our shelter side. We'll have 50 beds in that shelter. The upper side is our apartments, 31-bedroom permanent supportive housing apartments. So that will allow us to serve 80 men at any one time. So we're excited about that. It's going to enhance our ability to provide the services to the men here. On the lower side, again, it's our shelter. There's a private intake office. Right next to it, there's a private medical office, which will give them the dignity that they need to right away get engaged in those services. We have multiple meeting spaces, so we can have counseling and classes, life skills classes going on at the same time. We're going to have a commercial kitchen, which is very exciting when you're talking about feeding 80 men and additional 40 men and women and children down the street in that facility. So we're thrilled with that provision of those enhanced services that we'll be able to provide in that space. The other big piece is that our men need more time. If you've been struggling with addiction for decades, if you've been struggling with homelessness for decades, 30 days or 90 days is just not enough time to get back on your feet again. And so the hope is with this facility that men will engage in for 90 days on the shelter side. While they're there, again, they'll have the programs, services, and relational support they need to get back on their feet. And then they'll apply for an apartment and move over and transfer into one of these apartment units while still receiving the same services that they did in the shelter. We purposely have put in an office for a counselor and case manager right at the front of the apartment building so they can stay engaged with the men who are there. So instead of a 90-day period, now they'll be with us for a year or maybe a year and a half. And I think that'll really help prepare them to move back into the community healthy and whole again. So a little bit about the funding for a new facility. So it's 41,000 square feet. The total project is about $11.5 million. We're so grateful to the model group and to our grant writers for helping us secure over $8.5 million in the total of that section of the project. So the total raise to date is a little over $11 million, and we have a funding gap of about $475,000 and some creative things that we're going to try to do as we finish off the capital campaign, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you at all, but we really believe that once that gap is closed, that there'll be no debt connected to the project. And so we're very excited about that. So that's really kind of the end of the formal part of our presentation, but if there's any questions, we're open to answering those.
Any questions for Mr. Williams or Ms. Messer?
Do you have a projected completion date?
Yeah, it should be mid-February, so hopefully we'll move in then at the end of February or first part of March.
I will note Mr. Williams has made a generous offer to have us tour the new facility. If you'd like to do that, I'm going to be taking him up on the offer. We'd be happy to get some time set up.
Yeah, I'd love for you to come over. We'll put on the hard hats and get a group picture, and I think it's far enough along that you can really see and be excited like we are with the facility.
So you can complete without the funding gap by February, or do you need this funding gap to complete?
We're going to do that simultaneously, but we can complete the project even if we don't have the gap secured.
Any other questions for Mr. Williams?
The city was very generous with us with the building of our new women's facility back 9-10 years ago, and we really appreciate that and hope that there's some ways that we can partner together to finish off this project too.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming down this evening. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
All right. And I've received a couple of comment cards. I'd like to invite Ms. Wanda Glover. Then get your name and address, please.
Wanda Glover, Chair of Second Ward Community Council and NAACP Community Chair, 1106 Calumet, Middletown, Ohio, and also a proud employee of the Hope House. My questions, I have twofold. One is, we've done a lot of the planning and we've been in meetings planning the Oakwood area and other areas on that 20-year plan. And my question is, now that we're changing city managers, are we still on that same keel, or is it going to change as far as, I saw plans, about the park that was supposed to be erected over in the Oakwood area, and the housing that's supposed to go up, and the vacant lots that we have, that's the twofold. If this doesn't happen, or if this is put on freeze, are we going to be allowed, is it going to be opened up again where we can buy property next to our houses, the lots that they sent us letters that said we could buy, and then they sent us letters and said it was frozen? I'm getting a lot of questions from the community on that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Cohen can certainly address those for you
I'll be
an
in
hour
touch with
later.
you. How about tomorrow?
Okay.
I'll give you a call and we can chat about it.
We'll talk about it.
Sound good?
The good news is council adopted that housing plan, so that'll be our plan for the future, be incorporated in our master plan, and the details on the properties Ms. Cohen can get with you. So thank you.
I'll give
Great.
you a call.
Okay.
Sound good?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The last card I have this evening is from Ms. Brielle Maynor. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Brielle Maynor, 125 South Broad Street, Middletown, Ohio. And I'm here to speak about give an update on the Midpoint Library System. We'll be renewing the levy that expires in 2020. It's a 0.75 mil levy, will be another 5-year levy, no increase, it's a replacement. The levy will be on the ballot in March of 2020. And our library board has passed the appropriate resolutions, and we are at the next step in the process, which is for the city council to pass the appropriate resolution, since the city is the library's taxing authority. The resolution is on the agenda as item number 26 under legislation. Our legal counsel, Marianne Nardiello, has worked with yours legal counsel to ensure that all the i's have been dotted and the t's have been crossed. So at this time, just wanted to come by and move this along and see if there were any questions.
Any questions regarding the library? I know we get the periodic updates from the library, and certainly appreciate the work. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Larry, I have one other thing and I forgot to say it.
What's that?
On behalf of our community, we'd like to thank you for all the service that you've given to us and all the proclamations that you brought out to us and all the donations to my Christmas party and to the Park Festival. And to Steve, you know we love you too. And we really thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, with that, we can move to our city manager reports. Ms. Cohen?
Thank you, sir. The first part of this, we're going to discuss where we have been on the homelessness issue. From what I can tell, we are at a place where we've identified what our potential options are moving forward, and we're at a point where now we need to decide how we want to handle some of these issues. So I'm going to spend some time going over first what we believe our options are at this point, and a lot of this you will have seen before, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly to save some time. But our first option is the downtown camera issue. We've had some discussions about, is this going to be effective with Hope House moving out in the February timeframe? But it is an option out there that we can take a look at. The next option is going to be the community-oriented police unit. This has been scheduled for potentially 3 officers to come on and work specialized issues like this homelessness issue. There is a concern to be about $277,000 in 2020 to bring 3 new officers ongoing. There's about a 5-month implementation period as we bring new officers on and phase older officers into the community-oriented policing. There is an option we could start this with 2 cops instead of 3. That'll be at council's discretion if you'd like to pursue that. There is a question of in the budget, would we have to reduce the paving to pay for the additional officers? There is the option of pursuing a special improvement district and effectively allowing business owners to pay additional monies based on their frontage downtown in order to garner additional services. That could be security, that could be a whole host of issues that we could set up at a later time. Next option, and I know we had discussed this at one point, was issuing a public statement. We can work through Shelby and the communications office to draft a statement that we can issue to the public and condemn the communities that are sending homeless people to the Middletown area. We would probably need a council workshop to discuss and work how you would like that to be phrased. The last option that we have not discussed so much are what our legislative responses are. Ms. Vittori had forwarded a piece of legislation from the Los Angeles area that was passed in 2008. I believe all of council received that and had a chance to review. That legislation effectively created a civil penalty and offense for hospitals that released patients to some location other than a registered medical facility or a residence. So preventing a ambulance from simply dropping somebody off in the downtown area, for example. It was limited in application to hospital facilities. There is some ties to their federal funding, and it fitted nicely there. My study on the Los Angeles statute indicates since 2008, the Los Angeles Legal Department has had numerous citations, 6 major lawsuits settled out of court. There have been no challenges noted to that law. We have no reason, after looking at it further, that it would not be a legal option for us to pursue here with relation to the hospitals. It's going to be a little bit more challenging, and we'll discuss that in a second about other jurisdictions. But with relation to the hospitals, I do think that is a valid option if you'd like to pursue that. I've been working with Frost Brown Todd to see if we could scale that up to additional jurisdictions, dropping homeless off in Middletown. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but 3 or 4 attorneys, and I think, 4 or 5 hours each looking for different examples of this. And we were unable to find any precedent where other municipalities have effectively outlawed this behavior. You could speculate on why that is or not. My concern with coming up with similar legislation here is that we have some questions about jurisdiction, bringing other municipalities into Middletown courts. There's going to be a barrier to entry on a jurisdiction question. And there also in Ohio is qualified immunity that is not an ultimate problem, but could be a barrier to entry. The idea is if a police officer drops somebody off here in Middletown, you have to prove that it was completely outside of their scope of their duties in order to get over the qualified immunity hoop, as it is. So there's going to be some barriers to entry there. We could not find anything that would say one way or another about a court saying, hey, you can't do this or you can do this, but I'm going to tell you that it is probably a pretty high barrier to pass at this time. We did take some time to look at if there were other legislative responses from other municipalities. I will tell you the current trend is to work more towards housing assistance, not towards the criminalization of homeless activities. There are some cases pending with the Court of Appeals in Idaho that actually has a request to be heard but from the Supreme Court. There was a case in Idaho that said you couldn't effectively penalize someone for sleeping on the street if there wasn't any other option for them. So if you didn't have the beds for the homeless shelters, if you didn't have other options, you couldn't criminalize someone for sleeping on the streets. This started a tidal wave of options where people are now challenging municipalities' rights to legislate what we would typically consider homeless types activities. There's also some case law out there about if a relocated person themselves wish to file a lawsuit, that there's some more legal stance for that person to file lawsuits as opposed to the municipality. As we move forward for this, I think our first option is if you'd like to pursue legislation similar to the Los Angeles statute about the hospital activity, I certainly think we can do that. One option I think that might be worth pursuing is some concerted lobbying effort with our state representatives. To address the jurisdiction question, a state law would be a lot easier and more effective. And I think there's a point where reaching out to our state representatives and pointing out how much of a problem this is for communities like ours. We certainly can't be the only people in the state that are having these types of issues, and really taking some time to step out and make contact with our representatives and discuss if something can be done on the state level would be an appropriate response. Finally, I do want to take some time to pursue some other legal options. There are potential for injunctive relief against other municipalities if they were to drop somebody off in Middletown and we can prove it. It's not a completely flushed out idea, but I do want to take some time to review that again. I also think there's some potential for legal action. For some of the persons that find themselves in a homeless situation, they are receiving some form of federal assistance. Frequently that's done through a payee. And what we found is there is a percentage of people that have payees that are not actually doing their job and helping to care for the person. I'd like to do some further diving into whether there's potentially action against payees for failing to do their duty as a payee and help assist the people that we are finding. So that's another option I'd like to continue to take a look at. At this point, I feel like I need some guidance from you. First, is there any other avenues you would like us to take a look at? And second, how would you like us to proceed? I can see if we'd like to set council workshops either in December or January, or if you want to set up a separate committee to look at some of these issues and then make you some recommendations, we can certainly do that as well. I don't have to have that answer tonight, but I think we are at a spot where I need some guidance on how you would like us to proceed with these options we've been discussing for a few weeks.
Any initial directions from council?
With the community policing, because we had that unit prior, correct, in past years?
I believe so, yes.
Because it's not just homelessness. I guess I'm just kind of looking at it as a cost-benefit analysis. If it's just homelessness, but in my recollection, they do other things across the city as well as needed. So it's almost like another layer.
So I think the way this has been explained to me most effectively is it could be used as effectively a specialized unit. They can help work on problems as they come up. They can also help work on some of our like neighborhood watch type issues, and help handle some of those complaints and take them off the plate of your normal patrol officers and take them into a specialized unit.
Right. I mean, I think right now we're gonna have the seasonal change that's gonna affect how much the homelessness issue is kind of batting down our doors, but it could be a good time to look at what else that unit might do, because I know we have issues across the city that our patrol officers just don't really have the time to handle. So I would probably be, because we talked about that for 2020, and if it takes 5 months, I mean, I would be interested in moving that forward or sooner rather than later, because I'd love to have it ahead of next summer when we know the homelessness problem is probably going to rear up again.
Okay.
So that would probably be my personal priority.
My question would be, is there any way to get the money from other avenues other than taking it from the roads?
I will have Jake and the finance people take a look at it. I'm going to tell you it's going to probably be very difficult to come up with that total amount at other places, but can we lessen it? I would imagine we could probably come up with something. But the total amount, I'm going to say, is probably fairly difficult at this point.
I know these two issues are probably the biggest in the citizens' minds.
Sure.
Ms. Cohen, was there any other states that had passed a state law that our state legislators could look at as a baseline, or maybe you didn't get that far?
I did not find any directly related to this issue. Not meaning there aren't some out there. I did not study that as extensively as we did municipalities. But there are some correlations, I believe, of states getting involved in effectively disagreements between municipalities that I think has some parallel facts that we're looking at here.
Are there any updates on the SID and the structures? I know the group was going to meet with DMI and maybe the owners and merchants downtown.
I have not gotten any updates on that, but I can.
Okay. That, in my mind, again, if it's going to be focused in the downtown area, which seems to be some of the opportunities, that opens up other potential solutions for them as well too, for everything from snow removal to cleaning the streets and things like that could be beneficial for them. And depending on how that's structured, might be worth looking at a little closer with that merchant group and owners property group. So.
Would it be worth bringing this back for perhaps a workshop in January, and we can answer a few of these questions that are still outstanding, and then really take a look at how we want to move forward?
I think it makes most sense. Maybe I think the new council will probably have a retreat. Maybe a good opportunity for that as well too.
Okay. We'll move from there.
Thank you.
Just one more minute. As I am working on some of the transition issues, 2 other issues I wanted to bring to your attention. First, in September, there was a request from Butler County RTA to use some of our grant facilities to assist in the building of their facility in Oxford. They have come back and asked me for a response. I did not have any additional information. So again, this does not have to be this evening, but I would like, if you can give me some feedback on what you'd like to do with that, so I can respond to Butler County, that would be helpful.
I thought we were in favor of doing that.
Yeah, I recall heads nodding. That essentially just frees up some of our allocations from federal grants that are going to essentially expire in the next
Yes. This is, I think,
30 days or
use
something
it or
like that,
lose
so,
it.
yeah.
Okay. If that's good, then we'll bring it back for legislation in December. And then we've had some discussions about the implementation of an additional fee on vehicle registration for road repair. I did not know if we had any consensus on how you'd like us to proceed on that.
We agreed on that as well.
Okay, we'll bring those back then both in December for legislation. And then if I may have one moment of indulgence, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your support as I've been transitioning into the acting city manager role. I also wanted to take a time publicly to thank all of our staff and the community members I've met in the past couple of weeks. Our staff has been wonderful, volunteering to do anything they can to make this as smooth as possible for the city. And I think that really goes to the quality of people that we have here. And the community members have been wonderful and supportive, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for that.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cohen. Brings us to our consent agenda. Ms. Skank?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file an oath of office for Wade Gates, to confirm the personnel appointments of Scott Gardner to the position of computer technician in the Department of Information Systems, To request the approval for a contract with Capital Electric Line Builders Incorporated of Dayton, Ohio for signal head and LED panel replacement at various intersections around the city in the amount of $57,312.06.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion for the approval of the issues and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, we have a number of motion items this evening.
The first item is to request approval to purchase a New Holland tractor off the ODAS contract for the Division of Grounds Maintenance in the amount of $105,606.82 from Steinke Tractor Sales Incorporated of Eaton, Ohio.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Division of Grounds Maintenance has a 23-year-old tractor that they are asking to be replaced. It has met the city's 15-point replacement schedule, is 73 months past its replacement date. The current tractor will be sold on Gov Deals. The new tractor is being purchased through state cooperative purchasing, and the money is already appropriated in the 2019 budget for the purchase.
Okay, I can almost get historic plates for that.
Yeah.
With that, any questions or comments from council? Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Item B is to receive and file the Tax Incentive Review Committee's report and to accept the recommendations of the Tax Incentive Review Committee.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Cohen?
This is one of those items we handle every year. This is the report of the Tax Incentive Review Committee. They review all of our tax incentives to make sure they're compliant with the terms of the agreement and then make recommendations about whether we should modify, continue, or halt the agreements. I believe they met in June, and the recommendation is to continue the agreements as listed.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item C is to receive and file the library tax levy renewal legislation, which is a resolution number 19-75.
Okay, do a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Ms. Cohen?
We've already heard a little bit on this. This is a renewal levy of 75 hundredths of a mil to continue for a period of 5 years. This is a renewal. The library is just not a taxing authority, so they can't put it on the ballot themselves. This is a pass-through for the city.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Item D is to receive and file the Economic Development Plan for the Sawyer's Mill Project 1 Incentive District.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Cohen, I know we had a
This is
public hearing on this previously, but,
one we've heard multiple times with the Sawyer's Mill. This is one of those things we have to file that says we have a plan and we can cover the necessary services for development.
okay. Any questions or comments from council? Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Item E, to receive and file the city engineer's certification saying that the Sawyer's Mills Project 1 Incentive District is 1, less than 300 acres in size and enclosed by a contiguous boundary, and 2, that the public infrastructure serving the incentive district is inadequate to meet the development needs of the incentive district as evidenced by the economic development plan.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second. Okay, this was our previous discussion as well. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our council comments this evening. We'll start with Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. No comments tonight.
All right, Mr. Bohannon.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Nenny, Mr. Vice Mayor Moon, and I guess Ms. Cordray, sorry, Mayor, for their election. Also, I read on Facebook that Reverend Farrell has got some issues, so I just wanted to pass on my prayers to him and his family that he makes it through these tough times right now. Also, like to wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Vittori?
No comments, thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Moon?
Thank you, yes. I too would like to extend my congratulations to Monica Ninny and to Nicole Condry, our next mayor. Congratulations on their victory, and to everybody else that ran, thank you for your engagement and your love of our community. Secondly, I want to congratulate David Foltz and Antoine Rogers as being the next inductees into the Butler County Hall of Fame. Two great Middletown athletes. So just heartfelt congratulations there. And I want to also thank Ms. Cohen for being willing to take on the acting manager job. It's not an easy time to do it, and it's not an easy job under any circumstance. So thank you.
Thank you. I too would like to extend my congratulations to the winners, Ms. Nenny, Mr. Moon, and Ms. Condry. Certainly a great change for Middletown. Looking forward to seeing the great things to come. It's been a great 12 years serving as mayor, and I've really enjoyed it, and look forward to my future as well too. So we've got a lot of great things happening. So I know it'll be in good hands with the council and moving forward. And to Ms. Cohen, appreciate her stepping up and jumping in. Anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. But look forward to working with you in your capacity over the next few weeks here. And with that, we can move to our legislation. Ms. Bretland?
Thank you. There are 32 items of legislation on tonight's agenda. Of those, 12 are emergency items. We are asking for a motion to waive the charter provision requiring two separate readings as to the following items. Ordinance number O-2019-72, ordinance number O-2019-73, ordinance number O-2019-74, ordinance number O-2019-75, ordinance number O-2019-76, ordinance number O-2019-77, resolution number R-2019-33, resolution number R-2019-34, resolution number R-2019-35, resolution number R-2019-36, resolution number R-2019-37, and finally, resolution number R-2019-38.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on two separate days and to declare the previously read resolution and ordinances an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes. Ordinance number O-2019-72, an ordinance amending ordinance O-2005-147, passed by the City of Middletown on December 20th, 2005, approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a tax increment financing agreement by and between the city and Sawyer's Mill Project 1 LLC or its designated affiliate and declaring an emergency.
Do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion or comments, subject to public hearing and lots of discussion. Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Ordinance number O-2019-73, an ordinance declaring the improvement of certain real property located in the City of Middletown, Ohio to be a public purpose, designated specific public infrastructure improvements that, once made, will directly benefit the parcels for which improvement is declared to be a public purpose, creating the Sawyer's Mill Project 1 incentive district within the city, declaring the improvements to real property within the incentive district to be a public purpose, exempting 100% of the value of such incentive district improvements from real property taxation for a period of 30 years, requiring the owners of parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes during the period of exemption, describing the public infrastructure improvements made or to be made to directly benefit the parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, authorizing the execution of a tax increment financing agreement and approving related matters and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, subject to our TIF and all the good things at Sawyer's Mill. Any other discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O-2019-74, an ordinance authorizing the execution, delivery of a cooperative agreement among the Warren County Port Authority, the City of Middletown, Ohio, Sawyer's Mill Project 1 LLC, and the Huntington National Bank, and authorizing the appropriation of funds for payment of debt service with respect to not to exceed $2,800,000 of Port Authority revenue bonds to be issued to pay cost of public infrastructure improvements and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-75, an ordinance authorizing a compensation agreement with the Board of Education of the Franklin City School District and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
Second.
Okay, no discussion or comments. Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-76, an ordinance authorizing a compensation agreement with the Board of Education of the Warren County Career Center and declaring an emergency.
Do a motion to adopt?
Second.
Okay, any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-77, an ordinance authorizing the amendment of a contract with Rumpke of Ohio, Inc. for refuse collection and disposal and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we had a previous presentation on this as well. Any questions or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-33, a resolution declaring the necessity of repairing certain sidewalks, curbs, and driveway aprons in the City of Middletown, requiring that abutting property owners repair the same and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-34, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-35, a resolution authorizing transfers from the Central Avenue Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund, 2018 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund, Capital Improvement Fund, and the Employee Benefits Fund to the General Fund for repayment of prior year advances and declaring an emergency.
And do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
And this is our previous presentation. Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-36, a resolution authorizing certain prior advances from the general fund to be converted to fund transfers and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-37, a resolution authorizing a transfer from the general fund to the 2019 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-38, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio for the period ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-39, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications for CY 2020 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants under the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program. Here tonight for a second reading.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we had a previous presentation on this as well, too. Any questions or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Resolution number R 2019-40, a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Department of Transportation, United States of America for a grant under the Federal Transit Administration Act of 1991 as amended. Also here for a second reading.
Okay, motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Resolution number R 2019-41, a resolution to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio for the period ending December 31st, 2020. It's a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or comments? It's our annual budget. Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes. Resolution number R 2019-42, a resolution authorizing the transfer of monies from the 2010 Lefferson Road Sewer Fund and the Main Street Special Assessment Fund to the General Obligation Bond Retirement Fund. Also second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-78, an ordinance amending section 1040.03 of the codified ordinances, levying and assessing sewer rates. Second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-79, an ordinance amending section 1066.07A of the codified ordinances and establishing a new solid waste collection fee. Also a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-80, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Rumpke of Ohio, Inc. for refuse collection and disposal for 2020 through 2022. Also here for a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-81, ordinance authorizing a contract with Chemtrade Chemicals US LLC for the purchase of ferric sulfate for use at the Water Reclamation Facility for the year 2020. Also a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussions or comments? Our dewatering legislation. Very important. Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yeah.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-82, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Phoenix Safety Outfitters for the purchase and repair of fire turnout gear. Here for a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-83, an ordinance establishing pay ranges, pay policy, and benefits for various salaried and hourly classifications within the service of the city. Here for a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-84, an ordinance establishing pay ranges, pay policy, and benefits for various salaried and hourly classifications within the service of the city that are hired January 1st, 2018 or later. Here for a second reading.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-85, an ordinance establishing pay ranges and certain benefits for employee classifications in the Middletown Department of Health and Environment. Here for a second reading.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-86, an ordinance eliminating the 2010 Lefferson Road Sewer Fund and the Main Street Special Assessment Fund of the city. Here for a second reading.
Got a motion to adopt?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2019-87, an ordinance determining to proceed with submitting the question of a renewal of a tax levy renewal for the benefit of the Midpoint Library Systems and declaring an emergency. However, no action is requested until December 3rd, 2019.
Ms. Cohen?
This was the matter of the earlier comments by the library. Happy if there are any additional information you'd like.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? As I recall, we're essentially required to pass this through, if I remember right.
Yes.
There's really no.
We're the
take.
local taxing authority. They do not have an option to get it on the ballot otherwise.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Ordinance number O 2019-88, an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Historic Getz Tower LLC for office space in the Getz Tower located at 1000 Central Avenue and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until December 3rd.
Cohen?
If I may, I believe Mr. Kuhn and his associates are here. I'd like a chance to speak with you about this legislation.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Steve Kuhn from Canton, Ohio.
I believe you guys wanted to present some information on what was going on with the scheduled legislation for this evening.
The update on Getz or?
Yeah, I've got an update. We've got all of our bank approvals. What we're waiting for is a lease back from the city to lease the office space on the first floor. When we had originally gone to the Hamilton community, or not the Hamilton, it's bad to say that, huh? The Middletown Community Foundation, it's a foundation. And they gave us $600,000 because that was our gap. And they gave us that predicated on a lease with the city for that commercial space on the first floor, and then we were gonna do the 16 units up above. The project actually doesn't work without the $600,000 gap from the foundation, and it doesn't work without the City of Middletown taking that space on the first floor, basically the bank lobby. And it's not just a floor, it's literally a bank lobby. I mean, it's 30 feet in the air, it's impressive. We always said that would be a great space for their economic development, when you come into the city, and I mean, that would wow people. And, we felt that that's what we needed. So that was always our intention, to have the city on the first floor in 16 market rate units. But if, for whatever reason, the city has changed their mind, they really need to let us know now, and, we can make arrangements to do something else.
Just a question, and I think you're pretty much correct on the way you recounted it. The legislation we passed in 2016 about the lease said that it would be market rate, fair market value. So I need some help understanding building the fair market value.
Okay, no, the housing units were all market rate.
I'm talking about the lease.
Yeah, when we built our performa, it was just a total cost to do the project. And, I mean, market rate, if you're comparing it to something that's a white box that you can, I mean, it's anywhere from $10 a square foot to $35 a square foot, we came up with the $28 a square foot. And that's just what it's gonna take to do this. So I guess, you've got to, I mean, I wish I'd have known this was gonna be an issue 6 months ago, and we wouldn't have spent the money that we've spent up until now. We really need to know if you want to be a part of this and help us move forward, or if we need to just shutter it and move on.
So your point would be that $28 a square foot is market rate based on what you rent in Hamilton or Canton or in your other places?
Based on other facilities of that type of construction. I mean, it's not just a space. So, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
My name's Joe Parsons. I live in New Franklin, Ohio. I think I worked with you on the lease agreement.
Yes.
Thank you. I noticed there were some questions regarding comps, and it's difficult to come up with comps as a developer. It's the cost of the project, and in this instance, the example I used was it's going to cost somewhere, but based on our experience, somewhere between $175 to $200 a square foot to build out this space. So that's $437,000-ish. And we had always discussed a 10-year lease, and the city ultimately said, you know, we don't want to do a 10-year lease, we want to do a 5-year lease. Okay, we can do a 5-year lease. But it's impossible to get financing with 5-year lease agreements. Very difficult, not impossible. I won't say it's impossible. It's very difficult. So I suggested a 5-year lease with a 5-year renewal, but if the city didn't exercise that 5-year renewal, so that we could amortize those costs over 10 years and get that price down a little bit, if in the event that the city didn't exercise its first 5-year option, it would be responsible to pay half of the unamortized improvement costs. I've done that in other circumstances to try to massage the rate a little bit, but ultimately, the rate is not what you can rent space across the street or another building. It's with development, it's the cost of the project. If I financed it, my debt service would be more than the rate that we've quoted to you for the rent. And as Steve said, you know, it's really a decision with the city. We have viewed this really as an opportunity for the city to invest in itself. I think it's a very significant location, particularly for economic development. It would be an opportunity for the city to invest in continuing what has happened over the last 4 or 5 years with the new businesses coming into town. I think this would be a catalyst to bring in more business, but also would allow us then to do the residential units, which, again, each one of these things compound on the next. And once you get residents living downtown, then there's more folks for the restaurants and the theaters and so on and so forth. So, but I think it makes sense, but it makes sense if you view it as an investment in the city.
How many square foot are we talking about on the first floor?
2,500 on the first floor.
2,500.
And then I think about 500 square feet in the lower level for
Okay.
storage, archival storage, file storage.
I mean, I think we just have to feel okay spending the taxpayers' money on rent that I think exceeds probably other spaces in town. But I understand the value of having a project. So are you saying that there's no middle ground? We can't pay $20 a square foot because then you're just gonna stop the project?
If you do a 10-year lease.
You know, I've learned to never say never.
Okay. I just had heard shudder.
That's sort of
so
like
I was concerned.
all generalizations are false, including this one.
Okay.
But, no, I mean, if the city, one of the things that would help them have the most dramatic impact on the rent would be a 10-year lease. Because then some of the improvement dollars are general in nature in that they'll benefit the building regardless of who the next tenant is. But some of them are not. And my experience, after doing this for 40 years, is that no one's improvements works for the next guy. You seem to invariably tear them out and start over. You're not tearing out mechanical systems. You're not tearing out the plumbing and the electrical. But you're tearing everything else out and starting over again. So you have to be able to amortize a sufficient amount of those improvement costs to get it down to where if they leave in 5 years, then what? And that hence if you don't want to sign a 10-year lease and you'd like to sign a 5-year lease, fine, but we'd ask you to pay for 1/2 of the unamortized portion of the improvement cost, which I think after 5 years was about $187,000.
And I see here that we're going to pay $150,000 in the first year.
I'm sorry?
We're going to pay $150,000 in the first year of the lease.
No.
Finance director is hereby authorized to direct and pay a sum not to exceed $150,000 for 1 year of lease.
No, is that from the original legislation, 2000?
I'm just reading what it says. $75,000 is coming from the development. Can you tell me how we arrive at this? Is this overall for the 5 years, $150,000?
No,
The rent is not to
The
exceed
rent-
$70,000 annually. There is money for landlord improvement to the space. I believe it was $75,000 was allocated separately for the improvements to the space. And then there was a potential for operating expenses to 1/12 of 10% of the portion of the annual operating expenses. So there's some additional
I think we had a
funds.
not to exceed.
Yes, and that's adding those numbers all together gets you to the 150, which is the maximum amount you would spend, including the rent, including the
That wouldn't be
improvements.
every year, though, that.
No, that's the initial startup.
Right, and it's 70 after that.
Yes. So the rent portion of that is 70. There's some improvement costs that were built into the lease, and then some management in that small portion.
Would we be able to sublease it if we did go to a 10-year?
I'm sorry?
Would we be able to sublease it if we went to a 10-year?
Yes,
And
there
are
was
we-
some provision in the,
Yeah, you know, it provides in the lease that you have the right to do that, subject to our consent, which is not to be unreasonably withheld, so, you know, if it was,
No strip clubs.
anything that the city would want to sublease to, I'm sure would be acceptable to us.
I mean, I'd personally like to see the numbers on the 10-year myself, but that's just me, because I'm not super comfortable with just paying such a high rate. I mean, trust me, I want this building done more than anybody up here. But at the same time, I just feel like we have to be careful stewards of taxpayer dollars. So putting our economic development team in the Taj Mahal while having benefits at the same time.
I mean,
that's
there is a component of, and I don't want to beat this horse to death, but of an investment back into the city. You know, I'm
Absolutely.
absolutely comfortable that you can find space in the city for less than that.
Sure.
And I think the disconnect was a little bit, I think we were operating under the assumption that we played a big part in that community foundation, $600,000 3 years ago, was that, yes, we were going to lease, but it was going to be at market rate. That's what the legislation said. Not that it wouldn't be, that the cost would be amortized into that.
And I, just my view of that, my understanding of that was market rate housing, as opposed to, you know,
Market rate rent.
some sort of tax credit project.
Yeah. And just to be clear, just the funding came through Middletown Moving Forward. The Community Foundation was one of the partners. We had banks and a number of partners. Duke Energy was a big partner.
Yes.
The city's partner. So yeah, so there were a lot of partners involved through the CIC. So, but yeah, a lot of moving pieces with these projects are pretty
But if they didn't do that, we wouldn't be here today. So
Exactly, no. It's an important
That was
project.
our
and
gap.
Keystone for downtown, there's no doubt about that. I mean, early on, I was, when this kind of first popped up, I was fine with the 10-year lease, but ultimately, you know, I think it was fallen to administration to figure out what they needed, and they felt comfortable with 5 years, but we certainly have time if we wanted to suggest 10 years and look at those numbers. I think that would make the math a lot easier.
Could you get me the 10-year numbers and I'll distribute it to council?
Yeah.
And that way we have some time between now and the 3rd and you can take a look at that. If you get that to me tomorrow, that'd be great.
And I just wanted to say that was really the last thing. If we've got a lease, the bank's ready to move forward. We've got approval. We just need that lease in place
So what would the completion date be
by the end of next year,
for the whole building?
the whole building.
Okay.
So we've got to get started on it. And we've been asking for a couple of months to get that lease so we can, you know, if we wait a couple more months, it goes into the following year. And then the way the credits work, you have to be substantially complete to do your credits, and then I have to carry that for another entire year,
Right.
which would just be a financial burden, so.
If you give me those updated numbers, I'll distribute them to council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, appreciate you coming down this evening. All right, next item, Ms. Bretlin?
Ordinance number O 2019-89, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Parsons Equipment for the purchase of a Bomford Hawk arm mower and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until December 3rd.
Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Division of Grounds Maintenance has an 11-year-old arm mower, needs to be replaced. It's met the city's 15-point replacement schedule, is 18 months past its replacement date. Current arm mower will be sold through Gov Deals. The new one will be purchased from Parsons Equipment for a total of $55,000 and some change. There are funds appropriated.
All right, any questions from council?
Ordinance number O 2019-90, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Zimmer Tractor for the purchase of a Kubota RTV X900 utility vehicle and declaring an emergency. No action requested until December 3rd.
Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Similar situation, building maintenance has a 16-year-old John Deere utility vehicle that needs to be replaced. It is no longer operating correctly. Zimmer Tractor of Monroe has offered $2,000 discount for the purchase of the new vehicle. There are funds appropriated for the purchase.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you.
Resolution number R 2019-44, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency. No action requested until December 3rd.
Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Thank you. This is effectively the next steps of the airport operations. We've talked before about taking over the FBO operations as of January 1. This is in preparation of getting that done. We have a few things we need to pay for. First is the self-service fuel system that we've discussed previously and that users are anxiously awaiting. The next thing is recertifying the main fuel tanks for manual sales. We need to be able to certify that the tanks are clean, there's no water in them, that the fuel is going to be adequate and safety for use. Then there's also some money in there requesting, as we have negotiated the changeover in the FBO, there's been some concern about the space being used. In order to let those conversations continue, we're preparing to get some temporary space up for a small cost in order to get that process and prove that we are open up for business January 1.
Okay. Any questions from council? Thank you.
Ordinance number O 2019-91, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for a portion of parcel number 0705101041 from B2 Community Business District to PD Planned Development District, here tonight for the first reading.
Okay, Ms. Cohen?
This was the matter from the public
Public
hearing.
hearing? Okay, any questions or comments? All right, and our last item.
Ordinance number O 2019-92, an ordinance approving the revised preliminary development plan for the Sawyer's Mill subdivision, here for first reading.
Okay, so this is subject to our public hearing.
Carried.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? All right, last item on the agenda this evening is an executive session. So I need a motion of the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage. And also in the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G8 to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. One, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 715, 725, 1724, 1728, or Section 701.07, 3735.67 to 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to economic development project. And two, a unanimous quorum of the public body determines by a roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interest of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
All right, following our executive session, we'll be in recess until December 3rd, 2019, in these chambers. Thank you.